Samuel Randall, right? He was this, just this random politician who did this incredible thing, right? He refused to allow his party to act in ways that were necessary, that were good for the party, but terrible for the country, right? And so, and I'm sure we'll come back to this, but I just want to put on the table this idea of today, perhaps we need more Samuel Randalls, we need more Francis Barlows, we need more people who were president in 1876 who were willing to put country over party. And so just another thing that sort of resonates, and why me and Ned thought that this election would be such a good counterpoint for everything that's happening right now.
The Republicans cared more in the end about the presidency, and they got that prize, but they sort of lost their soul in abandoning the civil rights commitment that they said that they cared about. Whereas the Democrats were willing to give up on Tilden in exchange for kicking the federal troops out of the South so that they could essentially win the peace and have Jim Crow laws and the rest of what we know the South to be like until the second civil rights movement of Martin Luther King and so forth. So that's why, in my view, it's a tragedy.
I think the election of 1876 really has two main things that scare me, right? The first is just how easy it is to have a competing slate of electors, right? If you think through the states that were at issue, Florida, right, you had the official slate, and then you had the attorney general, right, who was a Democrat, certify a competing slate of electors. In South Carolina, you had just the electors themselves, right? The losing slate of electors themselves just get together, cast their votes, and certify themselves as the winner. In Louisiana, right, you had somebody claiming he should have been governor, right, who was purporting to exercise the powers of the governor, was purporting to certify a competing slate of electors. And under the Electoral Count Act, the rules that Congress applies during that joint session on January 6th differ dramatically depending on whether you only have a single slate from a state versus when you have multiple slates, right? If you have a single slate, it is presumptively counted unless the chambers agree not to. And the only options are either that particular presidential candidate gets the votes or the state is entirely disenfranchised, right? Which I think that there are strong political pressures against. Whereas once you have multiple slates, well, now you get into the more complicated aspects of the Electoral Count Act, the more poorly drafted portions of the Electoral Count Act. And now the options are count one slate for one candidate or count the other slate for the other candidate. And so there's the stakes are much higher. The incentives are the exact opposite of what you would want them to be.